Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Let's Be Honest at Lotus Path Holistics. My name is Leonardo and I'm here with
Luna. Hi everybody!
Hi everyone, and happy Friday to everyone out there. And my name is Leo. I am a past life therapist, spiritual educator. I also see energies and auras and I mix it into my modalities. So I'm very excited to be talking about spiritual education topics here with you today.
And my name is Luna. I'm a karmic resolution facilitator. I see past lives. I also see energy. And I'm a spiritual life coach as well. And we are here to talk about a really huge topic that has affected not only our lives, but other people's lives as well.
Yes. Today we're going to be talking about narcissism, specifically living with a narcissist. Narcissism is a very broad topic that we can talk about for days. And we plan on talking about this for at least 2-3 weeks in the coming months, but not right away. So narcissism and a narcissist. Narcissism is defined as someone who has an excessive state of self-admiration and self-esteem, who's just into themselves and their appearances. A lot of the times, they're very ignorant of everyone else's emotions around them. And narcissists, they tend to be very deeply self-involved. So it's like, we all see those types of people out there. And it's definitely very obvious when they're ignoring you and making it all about them. So that's sort of generally what a narcissist is. In psychology, it runs from simple to complex. And we're definitely going to get into sort of all the ins and outs of what narcissism is all about. But before that, narcissism came from a Greek myth about a demigod by the name of Narcissus. And we have a Greek person here today, so she's going to tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so, I was born and raised in Greece, and so, one of the myths that we learned at school, it was like a really big one. It was, so it's called Narcissus.
Narcissus.
So, yeah, so that's the right, I would say, like the pronunciation.
Yeah.
And so, so Narcissus, so it's with, the same like in English, right? So he, was someone like a person was like very handsome, so he was just getting a lot of attention from everyone. And there was a girl who was a nymph who was like in love with him. Her name was Echo, and he rejected her because he was so full into himself and he didn't pay attention to her. And so the gods felt really bad for her situation, and so they punished him. And they made him to be so in love with himself where he went into the water, went to a lake, so he self-reflected, and he fell in love with himself, literally. And so he fell into the water and he drowned. And they say that from that death, there was a flower that sprouted.
Yeah.
And it's called Narcissus, a flower. And so that myth was very, I would just say, was one of the ones that I really remember till nowadays. And I would just say, well, that, I guess it's not a coincidence that the name of the girl was Echo, right? Because Echo, it's when you hear someone talking, you hear someone to try to communicate with you, and you completely just cut them off.
Yeah.
So
100%. Yeah, it's quite an interesting myth. I definitely looked into it more. I knew about it before, but this is so interesting to now think about it in sort of a historical context. Hey, Jasmine. Hey, Ned. Welcome.
Hi.
So generally, narcissism is from that myth, and it's based in the fact that, you can have that vanity that actually creates that immaturity in your emotional state that then offers a huge degree of self-esteem, sometimes even in bad ways. So narcissism is definitely like an inflated ego. A lot of people in the spiritual industry, we talk about ego and ego life, ego death. And so narcissism is when that ego, that self-image raises to a higher level, to a point beyond everyone around you. So it's all about when somebody actually is, using you to inflate their ego and using everyone's situations to do so. So it's definitely something I've encountered a lot in my work and in life. Yes, egos can be big.
Yeah, they can.
Definitely. So yeah, today we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about the psychological perspective of narcissism, and then we're going to talk about the spiritual perspective of narcissism. As emotional and spiritual practitioners, we've seen narcissism and emotional insecurities and downward spirals in a different way that everyone else has. So we definitely want to share that with you guys. If you guys have your experience as well, feel free to share, and any questions we'll answer along the way. Feel free to let us know. So definitely. So with narcissism, it seems simple, but it's quite complex. A lot of psychologists, especially in articles that we read today in books and publications, they base it in very different sections, And to me, when I looked at narcissism, I've always known it while studying in school that there's two that seem to be this great grand duality between the type of very, very narcissistic people that you meet. Mm-hmm. This includes, one, a grandiose narcissist, and two, a vulnerable narcissist. So a grandiose narcissist tends to be the more dominant one, and you have the vulnerable narcissist, which is the more feminine one, the more sort of like, passive, submissive one. So the grandiose narcissist, a lot of people consider it to be very, connected to like world leaders, specifically now in life, where they only think of themselves and they don't think of other people. They tend to be very aggressive, very like wanting to dominate the stage around them, and they have this superiority complex. A lot of narcissism is built in childhood. And this is studied in psychology deeply because, how you grow up builds your self-esteem, your character. So when you're a child and you're in this, superiority complex, you're built maybe into a rich family, or you're considered to be the special child. You grow up thinking you are special. As an adult, you start to put yourself above other people. And I've definitely met a lot of narcissists who are very grandiose and very dominant, very superiority complex at work, specifically. Definitely something that I've seen. What about you?
Well, now that you talk about the special child, so I have a lot to share about my experience because I was born and raised by narcissistic parents. And so I lived with them for 20 years of my life, and then I dealt with another 15 years, back and forth. Mm-hmm. And so, first of all, don't get it wrong when talking about special child, because each one of us is special. But when it comes to the point that you're so special that you're above everyone else, then it is when you just start feeding that ego. And now when it comes to grandiose narcissism, I remember very, very well from my experience with my stepmother, where she would take me to school, right? And she would just go around and fight with parents and with kids. Imagine a woman like 30 years old fighting with 10 years old, right? And she was saying, my daughter, about me, she's so special. She's the best. She has the best grades. She's so kind. She's so beautiful. Every one of you, you're just like, you can't even touch her. You're not even there. And of course I was not feeling it at all, because I'm like, well, why are you trying to do that? I was embarrassed, because I literally considered each one of the kids my friends, and I considered myself equal. But she was doing that to me because this is how she was raised, and she had a great, great idea about herself. She was very, very the grandiose narcissist person, where she believed that the whole world revolved around her. And we're talking about a very vocal person, not someone like the vulnerable that you say is more passive. We're talking about very, very vocal. Whatever was happening around her family, it was because of her. So that's a lot. Like, so she would say, well, if I don't cook, clean, or try to make sure that the finances are running in the family, no one exists in this family. If I leave, you're all dead. Like, it was like exactly like that. So it was everything revolving around her. And then it was literally just everything about it. Or if something bad happened to our family, let's say there was an argument, they said, oh, but of course they don't like me because I'm so pretty and I'm such an amazing person. And she would just create all that idea. So it was never about anyone else. It was always about herself. So if you have a person in your life right now who is all about them, no matter what you're going through, no matter what is happening, that's a big, big sign that you live with a narcissist in your home.
Yeah, because this is about living with a narcissist. You were raised with people who tend to be only about themselves, like cousins and mothers and fathers, even, exes, husbands, wives, friends, lovers, roommates, anybody that you've lived with where you have these, tendencies for people to just only look out and care about themselves, it tends to be narcissistic. And when it comes to grandiose narcissism, I've had plenty of bosses who tend to be narcissists.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. People who get this power trip when they get into a position of power, just like they just take it and they don't know how to handle it. It's like those people who, they get a lot of money and they just lose control.
Yeah.
Because the power just becomes so intoxicating. It just intoxicates your just whole mindset where you are just controlling everybody around you. And then you have your whole brigade and you toxify the entire area of your narcissism. So it's definitely something that I've seen a lot in work. And with people working above me, managers and superior people tending to take control of those things. I'm not going to get too political, but we can definitely see that people in like politician positions, they tend to be and act on their own volition. They don't really care about how everyone else feels, which becomes a problem.
Yeah.
It creates a narcissistic tendency that definitely sets the tone for a negative way. So, yeah. So I know that all of you definitely have stories about, different bosses and parents that tend to be narcissistic and will definitely encroach their superiority over you. It doesn't matter what you say. Doesn't matter what you do, they will exaggerate their superiority over yours.
But also friendships and relationships. So, if you live with a friend, you're in the same house, you're roommates. And so everything revolves around them, but they're very vocal about it. Yeah. And the same as if you're in a relationship with a narcissist and you live in the same home, there is a big punch of your ego and who you really are, because if everything revolves around them, you are being pushed to the side. You're not there to be equal. You're there to support them. So they're up here, you're down there. So you make sure that they're always okay. And this is a really, really big one, because it takes away of your power. It takes away of your self-worth. It takes away of your self-love, because everything is about them. And so that goes back to the other life we had about toxic relationship, because this become a toxic situation that you have to live with either at home or work. Because technically living with a narcissist at work, if you spend 8 hours of your day dealing with someone, in an environment, right? Yeah. It's technically living with them. It's 1/3 of your day. Think about it. 8 hours, 1/3 of your day living with them, dealing with them. And even, when you're at work, you're afraid that you're going to lose your job, right? If you say something wrong, you're going to be in the streets next day. So that's a big one.
That's true. I see a lot of narcissism in friendship circles that I've always been in. Have you all definitely been in friendship circles where you're with a group of friends and there's that one friend who think they're the boss of everything? That one friend that walks around and you can never get a word in with that person. You can never tell that person anything because they're always talking. They always want to be the center of attention, but they feel like they're always above everyone else because they think they're the leader of the group. Sometimes leadership in groups of friends or colleagues can definitely be misconstrued for just narcissistic tendencies.
Yeah.
Because I've been definitely part of large groups of friends where I just get so annoyed because I'm a very dominant person, but I don't push my dominance on anyone who doesn't want it, because I'm not going to lead someone who didn't ask. That's rude. And so then when you're part of a circle where then you have not only someone who's dominant, but someone who thinks so highly of themselves, like they are a celebrity. And you know how those people in the groups of friends where they walk in front of you, they walk in front of everyone because they're the leader. I've seen that so many times. And the problem is that these friendships in our childhood, they start from childhood, they start from school.
Yeah.
So then when you build that on into your life, it really, really gets insane, where you have to deal with those personalities at home, at work, everywhere. And within friendship groups, there will always be that one person who tends to think that they're better than everyone else. They never let anyone speak. And if no one sides with them, they tend to do stuff to sabotage it so they're back in control. It's that tendency that was created in the home that creates a narcissistic personality.
And I feel that with the grandiose narcissist, right? So what happens is that they push it, and they push it to the point that they get to extremes where you will see them being racist. Mm-hmm. You will see them being aggressive and fighting with others, and even xenophobia, being afraid of new people coming into their lives, and so sometimes they seem like very protective, let's say, over you, because I remember that very well from my childhood. I thought that my step-parents would just try to protect me, from people around me, but really they were claiming their territory. And be very careful of that, because the grandiose narcissists, when they say, for example, you're in a relationship, right? They say, oh, that's my girl, that's my guy. You see me, right? And when they do that, it's not confidence. It's not because they love you. It's not because they care about you. It's because they claim you as property. And be very aware of that. And the same goes with at work, right? So let's say that you have your boss, and then there's a new manager coming in, and then they try to give you instructions. They might come over and say, hey, I'm his boss. Remember that, right? So you just knew. So when they have that behavior, don't think that your boss tries to, to just set the rules for the new person. No, they just claiming you. They claim your identity, and they claim you as property.
That's so true. It's true. So definitely a tip I want to leave with you guys is when it comes to very, very dominant narcissists, you want to definitely be able to tell the difference between someone who's malicious versus benevolent, because that'll really tell you the difference. So like if you have a boss, right? Or you have a parent who tends to be very, very aggressive and controlling, right? And you want to know if they're beyond the point of logical or moral, they're being very, very, controlling to the point of being narcissistic. The difference is in their actions. All you have to do is watch their actions to understand why they do what they do. So you have, let's say, a boss who's going to definitely, get into your work, control everything you do because they don't trust you, versus a boss who's going to give you the work, put their trust in you, still control the situation, but decide to give you that benefit of the doubt. There's a difference between a leader and like someone who's dominant, somebody who's like a dictator. And that, I believe, is the key difference between, someone who isn't a narcissist. Being a narcissist is not like a forever thing, but the problem is it's a qualification of someone who's completely unemotional. And we're going to get to that very soon when we talk about the spiritual aspects. So let's talk about the vulnerable narcissist, which is, I think it's even more confusing, a little bit too common, because you never know when someone's actually crying because they are hurt versus crying for attention. So a vulnerable narcissist is somebody who is extremely sensitive and wants attention all to themselves. And somebody who will play the victim for attention. Like they will do whatever it takes to get attention. So if you're in a group of friends and you have someone who's a vulnerable narcissist, as soon as people are not paying attention to them, they start making it about them and crying about it, like, oh my God, my life, because they want everyone to focus on them. They're addicted to the attention that they get from the fact that everybody's looking at them. And there's a lot of them because unfortunately we all hurt, we all cry. But it's hard to know when someone is actually vulnerable, to you, or being a vulnerable somebody like a narcissist where they just want your attention. And to me, my tip is like, if you're talking to somebody and they're being vulnerable to you, afterwards you should get to some sort of, good conclusion. Like some solution. If somebody's taking solutions from you and they're working on it and actually doing the homework that you give them when they ask for your advice, I think that's somebody who is trying to be vulnerable. But if you're trying to help someone who's just crying to you all the time and they just want you to hear them talk, and then they don't really listen, and then they just do what they want to do anyway because they like your attention and you can tell that they just want your focus, that's more like a narcissist. Yeah.
I feel that the vulnerable narcissist is the victim of the grandiose narcissist. And so, not in every case, but in many cases. And so, think of it as this. When you're being raised in a narcissistic environment, talking about family, right? Or, because usually it starts from there. So if you have a grandiose narcissist in your family, and you, or many people say, oh, I'm not going to be that because I don't want to be like my parents, right? And you just want to branch off and be your own personality. But you were still raised under that mentality where you need to have attention. And so if you see the grandiose narcissist, with whatever they do, they get attention and they get good things out of it. Let's say they get gifts, they get jobs, they get the boyfriend, the girlfriend they want, anything in life, right?
Yeah.
So that stays with you. And so if you see someone who is being a vulnerable narcissist, they still want attention because they learned that from somewhere. Someone from their family taught them that. And even if they don't actively, act that way, they are passively doing that. And I do believe that the vulnerable narcissists actually are emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that they carry the trauma with them, and this is why they act that way. Or they also had a vulnerable narcissist in their family, and they saw, many times they say, oh my God, just like I saw my mom or my dad crying, and then my mom crying, and then my dad bought her gifts.
Yeah.
To make her feel better. You're like, okay, so crying is a good thing, right? So might as well just victimize it and say, oh my God, this and that is happening to me. And they're like, oh, let me buy you flowers, chocolate, a ring, jewelry, whatever you want. A car, sometimes they do that.
Yeah.
So, like, okay, so crocodile tears. So the more that you cry, the more that the other person tries to comfort you, so you get all the attention. And it feels good.
Oh, yeah.
It feels good when you're surrounded by that. And honestly, now that I'm talking about it, I realized that at a point in my life, I was a vulnerable narcissist. Mm-hmm. Because I was raised okay, so my stepmother was a grandiose narcissist and my stepfather was a vulnerable narcissist, but it was all about them at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so I realized, well, I don't think it was, I was not conscious about it, I was subconscious about it, but I acted on it because I felt that if I cry for attention, I'm gonna get, I'm gonna get help.
Yeah.
But I feel it was borderline because I was abused by their behavior, and I didn't know how to ask for help. So I feel like sometimes perhaps the vulnerable narcissists, they don't know how to ask for help.
Oh yeah.
They just victimize about it.
It's true, because I think that's a good point, because you can fall into behaviors that are narcissistic.
Mm-hmm.
Like in my teen years, I remember falling into narcissistic behaviors.
Right.
Because everyone else was doing it, so you had to do it to survive.
Right.
So I remember doing that, so that's not uncommon.
Right.
Hey, Christina.
Christina said...
Right, let me open this further. All right, she said, narcissism, do we all have that trait? Are we attracted or recognize this in others because it is something from within or from our childhood familiarity of the life we grew up in, just entering so we do get growth from narcissist parents. That's true. Yeah, and that's what we were just talking about.
Yeah, thank you, Christina, for that comment. It makes so much sense.
100%.
Remember that narcissism is a learned behavior, and
I think that my opinion, I think maybe most narcissists pick up that trait from their childhood, that they're allowed to act that way, and then it gets out of control. Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of like sometimes those kids that, of course, they have tantrums. There's like a part of the kids' life where, when they know that when they scream and yell, they get attention, right? Because they develop their identity, so they try to see how the world will see them. If you enable that tantrum by rewarding it, let's say, remember we did emotional eating, so giving them food. Yeah.
Or buy them gifts, something to silence them, but you don't actually, engage them into playing or let that energy out. This behavior is being rewarded. And so if someone hasn't done their childhood healing and trauma, that behavior has been carried along to the teenage years and adult years, because if they got rewarded as a child, it means that they learned that this behavior is okay. So it's being brought over to their adulthood.
Yeah.
And so many times, even if you're a grandiose narcissist or a vulnerable narcissist, it's a behavior that you learn. And so you carry it along and you act on it, consciously or subconsciously.
I agree, because as I was saying just before we read the comment, yeah, I can see how I was acting just like that as a teenager because, you know, there are situations where I felt bullied by other people. Mm-hmm. So then I was like at a point where I was like, I need to stand up and be this person, this rude person, so people respect me. Otherwise, people are going to keep walking all over me. So then out of fear, I would act like a narcissist where I would just want everything to be about me because I felt like if I care, people will take advantage of that. And then they'll use me for what I'm doing and how much I care. And it sucks because in situations where you're being abused or used by somebody else emotionally, you can tend to fall into narcissistic tendencies only to protect yourself. And the problem is that I personally see a lot of people, a lot of, you know, men and women who are narcissistic that I've met before. Sometimes it's because they were abused, that they become narcissists to survive the hurt. And they use it as a barrier around them so that they can just protect themselves. But then they end up damning their own personality and their own self-worth. You lose self-worth in the process of becoming a narcissist. From an abuse victim to a narcissist, then at that point, once you lose self-worth, it's really hard to get it back.
Yeah.
So I see that a lot in my work and a lot in life, and it's pretty hectic out there.
I actually just remember something. It's very, very odd. I just remember something from my kindergarten, talking about vulnerable narcissists, right? Mm-hmm. And so there was a lot of emotional, physical, spiritual, and emotional abuse in my house, and then dealing with two narcissistic parents. And there was I was at the kindergarten, and there was you know, sometimes like there's really, really naughty kids. And I remember one of the kids, he grabbed a pair of scissors and he cut my hair really short. My hair was like up to my shoulders, right? So he just cut a couple hairs, like, hi, I pranked you. And then what I did was I took the scissors and I cut my hair and I threw them on the floor. And I started crying really loud. And I said, he did it. And the teacher said, he did it? He cut your hair? I'm like, yes, he did all that. So he did some of it, but then I took the scissors, cut some more hair to make it more dramatic. Because imagine now, a kid who's like, I was like 5 years old. It's a behavior that I saw at home. And then I took it and I brought it to the kindergarten, right? It's intense because I remember so vividly right now talking about it. Mm-hmm. And so what happened was the teacher called the kid's parents in the kindergarten, and the kid got expelled from the kindergarten. Mm-hmm. So my behavior got rewarded.
Oh boy.
And that was a really big one.
The kids.
Right? So, but I mean, the kid did it, but I exaggerated by cutting more of my hair because I thought, well, this is what I saw at home. This is what I was taught. And so I brought it over to the kindergarten. And so, you know, and now you see how that goes. Because if one of us has a specific behavior, then someone else learns from it. So from my experience that day, 5-year-old kid, imagine all the 5-year-old kids around me, like, oh, so I can do that too. Mm-hmm. So it was like I think for a month or two, the teacher of the kindergarten, she was losing her mind because the kids were doing things to get attention.
Yeah, that's true. So let's talk about the spiritual aspects of narcissism. So what I talked about in my video that I posted on Wednesday was sort of like explaining narcissism, and we did that in a deep way here. I went into detail to explain what narcissism looks like to me as a clairvoyant. And I focus energy on everything that I do. And then Luna's going to give her perspective as well because she sees energy as well. So to me, narcissism is emotional lack of empathy. Personality-wise, it's literally like the void of empathy, the void of actually connecting with people in the proper way. And energetically, it looks like a disconnect. So when I see people's auras and chakras, and I know that they're narcissistic just based on the way that they act, they have a closed aura. Their entire aura just has like a barrier, like a silver gray barrier, and they can't see anything outside of themselves. It's like almost like you have like a mirror and you're just looking at yourself. That's it. And with that, it's like around the soul, you know, their soul energy is just like this, just tight, and it's always like a vortex running around because they're so focused on themselves and they don't focus on other people, which causes anxiety. So the anxiety from being narcissistic comes from actually the energy inside your soul that just starts to run really, really quickly because it's just constricted down. It's constricted all the way down energetically. And I've seen this multiple times in my energy readings, understanding different personalities versus what I see. And narcissism is definitely interesting like that, you know? And thanks for everyone that's joining us. Hey, Felicitas.
Hi, Felicitas.
Hello, everyone. Hello. And hello, India. So definitely, just from that clairvoyant perspective, narcissism, you can tell when somebody is closed off from the world. And when you are closed off from the world, you end up being shunned and just shot out from everyone else. So that's how I see narcissism, as somebody who reads energy, and it's just such an interesting world to see it in that way, but I see it. I see it all the time, and it's definitely, you have to learn about it in order to fix it. Not every narcissist is broken. Some people can be helped and brought back to balance. So how do you see narcissism?
Well, in my case, with my own step-parents, I saw the other way around, actually, which is very interesting. And so the energies felt like roots of a tree, and I was the soil. And so you could just see the energy just going and spreading down and just literally suck the life out of you. Everything that you have, and I'm just saying, like, with everything that comes to my soul right now, I feel so intense, but it is. They want every ounce of your soul, or whatever you have to offer. It doesn't matter, even the most minor things. So this is exactly what I was seeing. They looked as if, literally like a dark tree, just taking with the roots, taking energy from whoever is around. I would just say maybe like an energy vampire. Some people describe that. And so this is exactly how I felt, because living with them, I couldn't have my own life, in a sense where if I was in a relationship, they would just make sure that I break off from it. If I have a friendship, I would just break off from it. Because why? Because my energy would give attention to someone else. But that meant that the attention was being taken away from them. And they would just make sure that they have 100% of me. So if I got a job that it was something that I loved, they had to take the job away to bring it back to a job that it can be the same environment. So to a point that my stepfather found a job in his school for me, where he had to be around me to control the situation. But literally, from an energetical point of view, he wanted to make sure that his energy and my energy are around each other for him to feed off. That's exactly how I felt like.
True. Yeah. Hey, Roxana, welcome.
Hi, Roxana.
So, yeah, I agree. Because when you have a lack of emotional energy, the problem is kind of like we are. Like, if we get rid of water or the sun or just natural resources, we can tend to be vampiric in nature because we need and we crave. And we're like, I need stuff. Energetically, it works just the same. Because when you have closed out the rest of the world, you need it. And it comes to a boiling point where you just have to reach out and be this narcissist where you have to take people's energy because you don't have anything else to show for it.
Yeah.
So definitely interesting from that perspective. But I've understood from my line of work that, when looking into past lives and also looking into the trauma of this life, it's definitely, when you're dealing with narcissists, you're dealing with somebody who is usually in pain or insecure. Oh, so insecure.
Yeah.
Narcissists tend to be the most insecure people in the entire world because there's a reason that they're like that. And somebody who is not healed from their abuse at all. So you can definitely create negative attributes in your life if you don't heal from the pain that has been caused. So that's something to definitely focus on. So in the video, I talk about 6 different ways that narcissists can hinder your spiritual growth. Now, if you're all watching, you're probably all spiritual or very heightened emotional sensitivity, empaths, and people with intuitive abilities. And, when it comes to those things, you definitely have to watch out for narcissistic people because they can tend to feed on your gifts. And I'm going to explain that in detail, what those gifts are and how narcissists can actually feed on those. And you don't want that to happen. You have to protect your soul, your gifts, and your energy.
Roxana said, "Luna, your story makes me think of my parents' attitude towards me." There is a lot of it, and I've met other people who have dealt with narcissistic parents, and the difficult part is when you live with them. You want to fix the relationship, or you want to make sure that it's a balanced relationship because you say, well, they're my parents after all, right? So this makes it more difficult. I wanted to mention that when it comes to a romantic relationship, it's okay. I guess to a point it's a little bit more, not easier, but it's not as difficult when it comes to family because you were raised, by them. You have dealt with them more years. So it means that they're deeply rooted, their energies and their stories and their teachings in your soul. When it comes to a friend or a boss, you can just leave your job. You can find a new friend who's more soul aligned to you. You can find a partner who's, who's more in your vibe, but you can't replace your parents. So there are two ways of that. It's either you cut off that connection completely, or you stay with it and it is what it is.
And that's so true. That's so true.
And that's why I consider it the most difficult one to deal with.
Yeah, living with a narcissist is hard in general because you're stuck in that toxic root in your home. And like you said, it just pulls energy out of you. So that's what we're going to talk about, the spiritual growth that needs to be protected with spiritual people. So like I said, if you're watching this, you have to understand that, narcissism comes from a place of neglect and abuse, and it's a learned behavior that gets passed on throughout time and even culturally. That happens. But we're going to describe to you your gifts as a spiritual person generally and how to protect that from those specific types of narcissistic traits. So the first one that we're going to talk about is actually your gift to being like a forgiving soul and a very kind nature, someone who's very deeply rooted and grounded in your reality and being emotionally strong. Spiritual people tend to be very, very emotionally strong. And they can carry so many people on their shoulders. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I find in a lot of spiritual teachers and spiritual leaders is they are strong enough to carry so many people emotionally on their shoulders. They have an extra strength on them. And this is something that I've experienced as well. I'm able to carry a lot of energy as well as you. And it's a gift. It's a spiritual gift. And you might not think of it that way, but it's a spiritual gift. It's not... when you're born that way, that's very spiritual, and it's indicative of spiritual gifts that arise in your life later on in life. And so this matches a narcissistic trait, which is when narcissists are being very defensive, and they see everything as a threat, and they're always so irritable, So narcissists are going to tend to try to get on you, and then, especially when you're dating them, and they're going to try to, make everything a problem. Everything you do, they're like, oh, what is that? Oh, what is that? And because they're so irritable by the things that you do and the things that other people do, that you have to end up being their strength. So if you find yourself in friendships where you have to be the strong one for everybody or a specific person, that specific person, you're just strong for them. They have no muscle. But they do it because they're being so defensive and so sensitive, but they throw you like you're a meat shield. Protect me. But that's your spiritual gift, to be able to protect people like that, to be strong for people. But if you allow for somebody to take advantage of that, then where are you? And where are the people that need you? So that's that sort of gift that can be used by narcissism. And it's something that you should definitely focus on, because narcissists can tend to be very, very defensive and see everything as a threat. And I know we've seen this. They always see everything as a threat. They're basically seeking threats to be able to eliminate them. So pay attention to that. So then it comes to then the next spiritual gift, which is when spiritual people tend to be very, very sensitive, vulnerable, and perceptive, almost very emotionally open, and they can feel things as they happen. I can do that. She can do that. I know you all can do that. And being emotional and receptive to other people is a very strong spiritual gift. And hey, Sharon, welcome. Oh, no worries, no worries. Yeah, so we're talking about spiritual gifts and how narcissists can definitely take advantage of that. You would definitely know that because I know you're so emotional and spiritual. So yeah, spiritual people can tend to be super perceptive and emotionally open. And unfortunately with narcissists, they tend to be very anxious and stressed all the time, especially vulnerable narcissists, and they can be super insecure to the point that they will put their vulnerabilities on you. And I've seen this in my family, I've seen it in my friends, where they will want to make you the vulnerable target to all their emotions. They'll use you like a punching bag when they get anxious. Like, oh my God, I'm anxious, this happened, and then you're the punching bag because you can handle it. And then they expect you to see them and see their problems before they come to you. So if you have a friend around you or a lover who tends to look at you as the one who's supposed to save them and the one who's supposed to just, be the one to be there for them all the time, because you're supposed to be sensitive and emotionally vulnerable all the time, it's a problem. It's a complete problem. So it's definitely something that I've experienced and something of the gifts that I've seen in a lot of people. But one that we're all going to be able to relate to is the third spiritual gift is about our sense of responsibility. Everyone spiritual here has a gift to be able to be there for people. Like we have, in our soul contracts, we have a specific amount of people that we want to help as spiritual leaders and teachers. Like we do. But our sense of responsibility can get hindered by a narcissist or somebody who is emotionally controlling. Because why? Narcissists can be manipulative, controlling, and run you like you are their army, like you're doing their bidding. It's something that we've both seen a lot of. And I can name so many responsibilities that I needed to get done, but I let somebody else control it because I thought that, oh, they love me. But sometimes narcissists can be super controlling. They can manipulate you to thinking that you're their responsibility and they're your responsibility and that it's nobody else. That's that abusive relationships where they keep you in the home all to themselves. It can get really, really toxic.
I mean, when you live with them, and you are a spiritual and sensitive person, you feel everything around, and so when you're sensitive, when you're vulnerable, they use it against you. So being vulnerable and sensitive is a really beautiful gift because you're able to have your energies open to those who are around you. It helps you with your empathy, understanding who's around you, and how you interact with the rest of the world. But when you are open and vulnerable around them, they use those sensitivities against you. And so it is very, very difficult to live in an environment where when you cry, you're being judged, and you're being judged as you're weak. And you're always being compared to where they are. And so, for example, I remember as a child when I was sensitive, I used to cry. They said, "Oh, you're too sensitive. You're not even as strong as me. What are you? You're not even." You might tell me, "Well, I was not their child. That was another story." But,
that's a whole nother story.
A whole nother story. But we're talking about a situation where every time I was feeling vulnerable, I would just say, I would just hug an animal, would just feel really cutesy and say, "Oh, so cute." I would just say, "Why are you doing that?" And then it would just be really triggered because I would just give my love and attention to even an animal, and that would take away from the attention from them.
Yeah.
And, well, my first cat, they gave him away because of that.
Yeah.
Because I gave him all my attention, so they took it away from me. Mm-hmm. And so they might do that. Be very, very careful. So when you're with a narcissist, especially with a grandiose one, they might take things away from you. And sometimes you might not even see it.
That's true.
But it's happening. They might take your job away. So let's say they might come, let's say your boyfriend, your girlfriend, they might come to your job and create a problem, you get fired. You're like, what the hell just happened? Why did I lose my job?
Right, yeah. There's a very fine line because in relationships, sometimes someone will be very controlling.
Yeah.
And they'll try to be your parent, but that was your parent's job. That was a long time ago. For someone to be very, very controlling over you and then try to use you to your advantage and someone's spiritual sense of responsibility to their advantage, it's inhumane, really, because I know a lot of spiritual people and myself, we have this heightened sense of responsibility for the world. We want to protect people. We want to help people. And we can't do that if we're stuck living with somebody who makes it about them. And we end up being responsible for only them, and we can never affect the world. We can never change the world because we have somebody who keeps pulling our attention. We never get to our end goal. We never get to fulfill our purpose. And I find that it's this deep inner problem, with spiritual people, that we always attract those narcissists because we're too caring. And that comes out, and we're definitely going to talk about that for sure.
Yeah, so many things that come to my mind right now, and everything makes so much sense. And so when you see, for example, as I said, when they took the cat away from me, and then when it came to my job that I lost, they make sure that I lost it. When I started as a nurse at a university that was almost 5 hours away from my hometown, they literally interfered to the point that I had to be transferred to another university next to my hometown. And so because they wanted to be around and be all about them, because when I went to the new university, I started making friends, I started going out, I started having my own life. Yeah. And they didn't want that. They started losing that attention. And you know what? A narcissist without an attention is void. There's nothing there for them. And when they get no attention, they start getting more irritable. They start getting stressed out.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're so all hyped up with the energy they have around them. Yeah. So when they don't have them anymore, they're going through withdrawal.
That's true.
And they make you responsible for it. You took it away from me.
That's true. I think it's the easy way to know someone's a narcissist is to take away all the control that they have, to take away all the attention that they have, and to see how they react. Yeah. A person, if you take away all the attention that they gather from you and everyone else in the household, and they start freaking out, like throwing things, guilt tripping you, gaslighting you, like acting insane because you took away their source of power and control, you might have someone who's addicted to that. And unfortunately, when you're addicted to control and you're addicted to the attention of other people, you see a lot of that with influencers, narcissism, because it turns into narcissism. You're no longer addicted to the shine and the limelight. You're addicted to the attention that it gives you and the satisfaction it gives you. So it can happen a lot. So let's talk about the next one. So the next spiritual gift, the fourth one, is about being loving and compassionate, compassionate healers that we are. So spiritual people tend to be healers. They can love and heal people just by being around them, giving them a hug, shaking their hands. And the thing about narcissists is that they have a lack of empathy. So they can definitely not care about others. So they can utilize like someone like us, an empath, a spiritual person, to care for them. So they'll keep you close, and then they'll tell you to care for them. And then you can only care about them too. So they'll not only use you to spread their messages, like, I'll send you to care. Like a father who forces the mother to care about the children, he just sits there, because he doesn't have any empathy. He doesn't want to be bothered. But then there's the narcissists that actually take your empathy, your heart, and then they keep it to themselves. And they don't let anyone else have it. It's part of the controlling factor, but the problem is sometimes it's not controlling. It's just that narcissism tend to be unempathetic. So they feel void when they don't have that love. And guess who give the best love and the most satisfying love? Healers and light workers. People with spiritual gifts. We give the strongest love because we're meant in this lifetime to give that love to so many people. But when you're stuck with somebody like a parent or a lover who takes all that for themselves, it can become very, very toxic.
And the interesting thing is that is the trap. And I would just tell you that right up, that is the trap that I personally was stuck in for a long time, because I wanted to care for them. Yeah. I wanted to love them so bad because I saved them. I thought it's my fault. I thought I'm doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. I thought that there's something that's not working in the relationship, and there's something I'm not doing properly. Perhaps I'm not the good child, but perhaps I'm doing something wrong. And I was so investing in it. And I thought that, well, if I don't fix my connection with them, how can I love anyone else? And it's true though to a point, because remember, your family, that's why I said that the family environment is the most difficult one. Because when it comes to your parents, if you cannot fix a loving relationship with them, how the hell can you have a loving relationship with anyone else around you? How can you open your heart to people around you when you cannot open it to them, and when there's a wall between you? And so, so what was happening was, I went far and beyond, where I went to psychologists and I asked, what can we do about it? How can you help me? They said, well, family counseling. And so they rejected it, of course, because they didn't want to fix it. Of course, you don't want to fix, that dynamic, because then we'll be equal. But they wanted my attention. And the problem is I was trying for years. We're talking about almost 30 years of trying to fix it. Meanwhile, I was stuck in my spiritual growth. I was stuck trying to love them when my soul family was out there waiting for me. And I was not even there for them, because I was stuck investing in a toxic connection, because all they wanted from me was that. And I'll be honest with you, the only thing that fixed it, after all these 30 years of trying, I cut them off. That's it. I had to put a stop to it, to look for me and to look for others who need me out there.
That's true. Yeah, and Roxana is telling us that she feels so deeply about
that.
It's true. It exists in all of our lives. We don't understand it because sometimes, we're not educated about it, especially culturally. You never get educated about the fact that you got to know when somebody crosses over from being abusive into narcissistic. There's a very fine line.
Yeah.
It's not just a term that you win or lose at. It's a gradient. You could be 50%, 75%, 100%. Like, there's different levels of abuse that end up in this personality. And we're definitely here to show you guys and answer any questions that you have along the way, especially after this. If you guys have any questions about that, feel free. Let us know. So let's talk about the last two gifts as we're heading towards the end. So the fifth spiritual gift that spiritual people have is this ability to be kind and considerate to others, as well as the ability to expose the truth. And spiritual people, we have this thing where we just find truth. And we expose all the truths, okay? And the problem is that narcissists tend to be entitled and superior to everyone else. So you're going to constantly have this battle with narcissists as a spiritual person where they think their truth is better than your truth. Mm-hmm. But the problem is you're not a normal person. You're a spiritually in tune person where your path is exposing truth, is finding truth, is showing people healing truths.
And this is where gaslighting comes.
Yeah.
Because you say one thing and they say, you didn't say it, I didn't say it, it never happened.
It's true.
And so this is where the truth is being shut down.
Yeah. So they want to make everything about them more important. But if you're a spiritual person, you have to understand that you were born in this lifetime to help people find their own light and their own truth. And if you are stuck with a narcissist in your home, your roommate, or your lover, and you're living with them, they can tend to make their truth more important than yours. And you can't forget the fact that truth is not about who's right and wrong. Truth is about, healing and helping and revoking negativity and helping maliciousness, exit this world. Truth is about freeing people. And you can't do that when you're stuck with a narcissist. So then the last gift is about you being able to see the world, your perspective, and how you can see things clearly, as well as spiritual people can see the good in everybody. And that's where we get in the real trap, because narcissists can tend to take all your attention and all your admiration. They want it all to themselves, so you see only them. But at the same time, they'll be negative towards you, and you see the good because you see their innocence and their vulnerabilities. I've had plenty of people I talked to, especially in the past month, where, they stuck with negative relationships only because they saw goodness in that narcissistic man or woman. Everyone has innocence, but the measure of somebody's character is not how innocent they are. It's the distance between who they are and their innocence. If there's a huge gap between you protecting your innocence and then you being innocent, then that's a negative person. It does not matter if there's something precious inside them to protect. Sometimes you have to run and dodge it because you can get really hurt. And narcissists can really hurt spiritual people. So it's our job to educate each other and to help us, each and every one of us, to avoid the dangers of people who tend to be in a very toxic way, beyond toxic. Then you move on to narcissistic, where it's not just toxic, it becomes revolved around that person, and it really pulls you in and confuses you from your soul path. So those are the 6 ways that narcissists can hinder your spiritual growth. If you want to know more about that, you can see in the video that I posted on YouTube and Facebook on Wednesday. So we'll take this little time. If you guys have any questions, and we're going to give a little bit of our last tips on how to deal with narcissism.
So I wanted to add a little bit on the last part. It's a very big one, because when it comes to spiritual people, when it comes to healers, when it comes to truth seekers, somehow they all feel, see, understand, somehow connect with the inner child, the narcissist. And the inner child, let's be honest, it needs help. And it's like, hi, help me.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone feels that. And so when someone stays with a narcissist, it's because they believe in that part of themselves that is asking for help.
Yeah.
It's a trap. And the only way to get out is to remember one thing. It's not your responsibility to fix them. It's not. Because everyone is so invested into this. They try to be around. It's like, I'm going to help the person. I'm going to help them get through this. I'm going to help them, with the inner child. I'm going to help them with remember who they are. But if they don't want to remember who they are, if they don't want to take down the path, you can't be taking the burden on your own shoulders. It's not your fault. It's not your responsibility. It's not your trauma. Don't do it. I would just tell you this. Don't do it.
Yeah.
You need to, because remember, your inner child is being bothered by all these situations. It's like, well, what about me?
It's true. It's true. And my final message is that, when you guys look back at this, we're going to definitely do some more lives about narcissism, because there's so much more than just living with the narcissist. There's also, healing narcissism. There's, dealing with it in your everyday lives. These are conversations that have to happen. We need to be honest. That's what Let's Be Honest is about. Let's be honest as spiritual people, how to deal with these problems in the world, and let's share experiences with each other so that we can better heal the world. My best advice when it comes to living with a narcissist is just like you said. You the first narcissist that you live with is your family. The second then is, your friends. And then the third is your lovers. And it moves in and then you move on to your work. You'll meet narcissists throughout your life. People who've taken toxicity to a whole other level and have not dealt with their inner child work, have not done with any work at all, My best advice is always to just not blame yourself, because it really isn't your fault. I myself got stuck in that trap when I was in high school, and then my spirituality was just growing. And I wanted to help everyone. I thought anyone who I can't help was my fault. I had to understand that not everything is my fault, and also there's so many spiritual people on this planet. And the reason that is because we're all meant to help specific groups of people. I'm not meant to be Superman. I'm only meant to help the people I help. And those are a select group of people. And then, she'll help a select group of people. And Roxana and all of you, you're going to help select groups of people. And these people might not meet each other, but it's what we were meant to do. And, when it comes to meeting a narcissist, you have to basically understand that it's different states of mind. Don't blame yourself, and understand that your attention has to be focused on your goal. Always choose your soul path above everything else, because we know, and that your soul path is of purity and of wanting to protect people and to love people. So never let somebody take your spiritual growth just because of that. Yes, the true self sets you free.
Well, one last thing that I wanted to say is, the topic was today living with a narcissist.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I want to say? Don't live with a narcissist. The best advice I can give is just put it down in front.
That's true, yeah.
Don't live with a narcissist. And there's so much more to it. So we're definitely going to be looking forward to do another live about it, because we need to understand more about what is happening when you're around them, when you live with them, and what they do to you.
Yeah, I agree.
Because there's so much of how, not only your spiritual growth, your physical, your emotional, your mental growth, everything is stillness. And it starts being, it starts being drained.
Yeah.
Everything that you have. And so I feel it would be very, very important to do more lives to just help you guys to stand back on your feet. If you have dealt with a narcissist before,
yeah,
how to help you, how to empower you. But remember, don't live with one, even if it's your pain. I know it can be tough. If you have to draw that line, if you have to close that door for your own, spiritual sake and your physical sake, mental and emotional, just please do it.
Yeah, that's the lesson of this podcast is if you're living with a narcissist, don't. Easy. We should have said that at the beginning. Let's be honest about living with a narcissist. Don't.
Yep.
That was easy. But it's all about identifying a narcissist first.
Right.
You gotta identify the trauma before you get there. But yeah, it was great talking to you all. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Let's Be Honest with Leo and Luna. We look forward to seeing you guys next week. I believe we're going to talk about overcoming trauma and how to do that. So definitely we'll get deep into that trauma-focused therapies and past life therapies. It's going to be fun. So we look forward to talking to you guys. Thank you guys for showing up. You'll see this video on Facebook. You'll see this video on YouTube. And we look forward to you sharing the knowledge with your friends and your family.
Yeah.
Letting them know that we're not alone.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. And definitely remember what Leo said, you're not alone. This is what narcissists want to make you think that you are alone, but you're not.
You're not alone. And what do we learn? Don't.
Don't live with them.
Don't. All right, we'll see you guys soon. Have a wonderful Friday and
Bye-bye.
Saturday. And Saturday? Yeah, and Saturday.
And Saturday.
Thank you.
Kisses, bye.